What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over the top 10 videos of 2022. I'm going to apologize in advance for how I sound throughout this video. I caught the virus, so to speak, the one that will get my channel demonetized if I mention it, which is why there hasn't been any uploads the last couple of weeks, and I apologize for that. I meant to get this video out sooner, but life had other plans, which included me getting really sick. So anyway, we're going to fire off right away with one of the heaviest hitters of the year, and that'll be the ECS front lip install. Now, this video came out pretty much out of pure random. The story goes, I bought a Maxton front lip, and ECS, and at the time ECS was not great, with terrible service at the time. I bought the Maxton lip as well as a ECS rear diffuser for the car, for my GTI, and 2 days later, they or not even that, I think it was the day after, they emailed me and say, oh, by the way, we don't actually have the Maxton lip. And so they're like, they pretty much gave me no option for a refund, which is what I would have done, and I would have just gone and either bought the Maxton lip directly from Maxton or would have waited until I could have gotten a better lip that I was a little bit more keen on purchasing. However, ECS didn't really give me that option. They pretty much gave me the option of, I think between Aerofab and the ECS front lip. And I think it may have been Aerofab, maybe different. It may not have been Aerofab. I just remember it was in the mid $300 price range, which wasn't what I was really planning on spending for a front lip at the time. I was kind of looking for more of that sweet spot $200 range, because I was trying to buy the front lip and diffuser for less than $500 as a set. So I wound up buying the ECS. I wound up picking the ECS lip because it was the one that fit closest to my price price budget at the time. Knowing full well I probably didn't intend to keep it for very long anyway, unless I'd gotten the Maxton, because the Maxton lip is just much better looking, is built really well. So that was the one I wanted to keep. But I wound up picking the ECS lip, fully expecting, after reading many reviews, for it to fit like crap, for it to break, and all that kind of stuff. And so it finally showed up. I actually wound up canceling the diffuser because the diffuser just never shipped. I have no clue what happened with that. It just kept getting pushed back. I think it was supposed to arrive like early August, and then it just never showed up. I think it was like the end of August when I finally just canceled the order because I was just figured it was never coming. So ECS customer service was so bad at the time, and from what I understand, it's much better now. But that was kind of a thing that kind of put me off of buying stuff from ECS. And so the lip shows up, we bolted it up, it cracked during the install on the inside of the lip, and then the 3M tape they gave just kept sagging. Like, it's actually sagging off the car as we speak. And then it finally did take a good hit and cracked. I was leaving a Krispy Kreme in Marietta, Georgia, if you guys are familiar with that area. And I went a little bit too hot in the paint on the exit and cracked it. It's a very minor crack, which I showed off in the last video if you guys saw that video. It was very minor, but it's still there and it still bothers me. But I do intend on getting the Maxton lip finally once the funds are available for me to do that. It's kind of, well, I mean, the funds are available, but it's kind of low on my list right now of things I want to take care of, because the car already does have a front lip, and despite the fact it fits like garbage and is just terrible quality, it's still on the car, and it's really not noticeable from 20 feet away. When, like, it's definitely a 20-footer now. When you get up close to it, it just looks like crap. But that's the ECS lip install. The reason this one made the list is just because it got fairly decent bit of views. The channel's been dead pretty much since the Sport Track left. I'm not even gonna lie. But that was one of the better performing videos, which is why I made the list. Moving on to number 9, we're gonna talk about the Koenigs, my wheel setup. So this video came out probably, I think, early October. Now, this is another story of things that switched up on me. Now, I originally had bought some Vox BBS LM reps for the car, and then because I pretty much decided, if I can get decent quality wheels, I'm going to get even better quality tires. I was putting most of my wheel budget towards tires. I really wanted something that was going to get a lot of traction, be really good at handling. That's kind of the goal with the GTI. It's not really straight line speed as much as it is a balance between really good straight line performance but also fantastic handling. That's kind of the idea I had with it, while also trying to balance that third aspect of being a really good daily driver that's comfortable and reliable and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's just a triad that's really hard to kind of get sometimes, but that's just been kind of where I've been going with that, is getting a good straight line performer, a good handling car that's also reliable and durable as a daily driver. Thankfully my commute's pretty short, so thankfully I'm not putting a lot of miles in the car, so I think that's definitely helping on the wear side of things. But anyway, the wheels I bought were originally Vox BBS LM reps, and I've always liked BBS LMs on Mark 7s, but it's just They're really hard to make happen on a standard narrow body car because BBS does not sell them in the correct offset for our cars. They always poke, unless you are just a Stancy boy and you've got the camber for it. That's really the only way you can get a BBS LM to fit flush on a GTI or a Mark 7 platform in general. So I wound up just going with the Vox reps. I know people are probably going to say, oh, you're going to buy reps, oh. And I was perfectly content with that. I was ready to receive the hate. And I got a call saying those were on back order indefinitely. And so I wound up picking up the Kona countergrams instead. They were a good bit more expensive. I think about $300 more expensive than the Vox wheels were. But thankfully I had the money to spare. So I went ahead and picked those up. And I think I'm actually happier with those than I would have been with the Voxes. They are a much better quality wheel and tire setup now. I went through so much headache with them because the shop I bought the wheels and tires from, which are the ones who did the install, didn't balance them correctly and didn't put the hub-centric rings in it. So it vibrated and wobbled horribly for like 2 or 3 weeks. I could never figure out why. I took it to my local shop that I usually go to. The only reason I went to that shop initially anyway was because they're in the city that I work in. I thought, you know, I could take it while I'm on lunch break and have it done or something like that. Wound up not needing to because I got the day off that day. So I just went ahead and went in early and had it done. So I wound up taking it to my home shop, waiting 2 hours, getting told that they were balanced incorrectly, leaving, still wobbling. Took it back the next week. They were like, okay, yeah, we noticed this thing doesn't have hub-centric rings on it. We'll get those. Bought the wrong rings, and then the right rings were finally purchased, and the car is so much better. It's back to being 100%. And so I can't recommend the Hiram, Georgia discount enough for correcting all of the flaws from the original shop, because the car is perfect now. But I really love the setup. It looks great. It handles really well. It's just a really good setup on this car. I'm really happy with it. All right, moving on. Number 8, the Hayden Speed 3 reveal. So pretty much this year, everyone just decided to buy Speed 3s and leave me behind as the only non-Speed 3 owner left in the group. Ron actually wound up buying one as well, which we haven't done a video with because he's been busy rebuilding it. I was going to do a video with it, but a mix-up happened and I didn't wind up there when they were rebuilding the car, so I did miss out on that, unfortunately. But Hayden was kind of the first of the two to buy Speed 3 this year. Hayden was pretty much just looking for a new car to experience, and he originally wasn't really looking for Speed 3s. He was just kind of looking for more just anything that was turbocharged. He wasn't like being super picky about it. But the Speed 3 popped up for like $7,500 on Marketplace, and he was like, oh, what a great deal. And so he struck up a deal with the owner. They met up, and then the guy actually bumped his own price down by $2,000 to $5,500. So Hayden scored a pretty good condition Speed 3 for $5,500. Really the only major issue with it is it's got like some minor, like I think a window motor might be bad in it, I think. And then the turbo is definitely on its way out. It's burning a ton of oil, but that's just, unfortunately, with higher mileage Speed 3s, it's just kind of what they do. Okay? The KO4 is a really crappy turbo, and I think any of you VW guys might know that as well. And so it just burns a ton of oil. And so Hayden is looking into options on that and trying to get that figured out. I think he might also do an oil pressure regulator, much like Michael did on his Speed 3 to keep it from burning a ton of oil. I think that's just kind of the move. Just as kind of like for Hayden particularly, so to at least keep it temporarily until he can decide what turbo he wants to get, because he does have plenty of options. But Ron wound up buying one as well. But the reveal video was shot pretty much out of nowhere with no planning whatsoever from either of us. I pretty much just like, hey, I'm bringing my camera, let's go shoot a reveal video. Okay, cool. And so I just showed up, went and shot it, and that was that. I didn't really give much notice on that front, but it was a really cool video, and me and Hayden had a great time filming it, and of course, I'm excited to, much like the other two are, to dive in with him on this project, as well as Ron's project, Speed 3, in the very near future. And people are probably going to ask, Jordan, are you going to get one? Probably not. They're just, I already have a car that does almost the same thing. So just for me, it doesn't make sense for me to buy a Speed 3 and also have a GTI simultaneously. It's just, the two are so similar that it just makes it difficult for me to want to purchase one myself. I do want to get a project car though, just I don't have the space for it at the time. Alright, moving on. Hayden's tune reaction, number 7. So this was a fun one because at the time I had never driven a car that I personally owned that made more than crap. I mean, the Sports Track wasn't even that fast, so I can't even say it made 200 wheel. But the GTI kind of at its stock level was the fastest car I've ever owned at the time. And so we put a HPA Stage 2 tune on it. I bought a new speed intake and a HPA cat downpipe to fit that bill. I went over to Hayden's house and I was like, hey, let's go for a little ride. And so Hayden got to experience the car firsthand. The car was mostly stock at the time. I still even had these like really crappy iMove tires on it. I still have them. I actually took them up to Tail of Dragon, which we'll talk about later on in this video. And that car just got no traction in first and second. But one of my favorite scenes of the video is Hayden's reaction to when I did a first gear pull in the car. That's what made it. That's pretty much what got it on this list. It was just such a fun video to make, and I think Hayden had a blast. So we'll probably do some more stuff with that, especially now that I think it's actually faster with the EQT tune on it. So we'll probably do some more stuff with that soon. All right, moving on. The ride along with Ron. Now this video was fun in many ways. Now typically I really think that this should have been number 7 instead of number 6, but this car, it was such a fun video. So Ron is a good friend of mine. You guys might know CWDCT is his YouTube channel if you guys want to go subscribe to it. He has this JB4 tune Veloster in. I think at the time that video was filmed, he may not have had the JB4 on it, but it was pretty much just this full bolt-on. I don't know if it's full bolt-on, but just a bolt-on Veloster at the time. It wasn't JB4 tuned. As a Borla Attack and a catless downpipe. I don't remember the brand of that. But went out for a ride. It was the first time I got to hear the car with all the new exhaust parts on it. It's very quick, very loud, but it was such a fun little rip, and that was just a fun video. Even though he did go null mode in the video very briefly, but he figured it out. He may have had the JB4 at this point, actually, I think. So I swear I remember him messing with his phone during that video. Messing with some of the maps, but it was a really fun video. It made this list specifically because of that. Now I did a POV drive in this car last year that was very critically panned. I think that actually made the top 10 videos of 2021, so go check that out. But that was just a fun car to ride in, and I really enjoy the Veloster in. Alright, moving on to number 5, the first start of Michael's Speed 3. Now, Michael's Speed 3 went through kind of an unfortunate brief demise. Michael managed to somehow break a valve on his Speed 3. Pretty much it took a chunk out of the bottom of the valve, and it sucked because that was such a fun car, and I know how much that car meant to him, and for him to have it completely undrivable for several months, probably, you know, it was killing him. But thankfully Michael is a very, very intelligent person when it comes to working on cars, and he had it up so quick. So what he did is he wound up buying a junkyard CX-7 motor, because for those who don't know, the Speed 3 and the CX-7 share engines effectively. The only difference is the turbos are slightly different between the two. It's a different revision of the KO4. And so Michael did that, and then he bought a B&R S4. He did a balance shaft delete. I want to say he did head studs. I might be wrong on that. So he did the balance shaft delete, and then he did a lightweight flywheel. I think he upgraded the clutch. And then he stabbed that B&R S4 turbo on it. And so, all things said and done, that car is making close to 400 horsepower now. I think he did a virtual dyno run recently at like 380. So very, very fast car. And that car is an absolute blast. But this video was pretty much just the first start of it. It was also the first time I actually took a picture shortly after he pulled it out of the garage. And it was the first time that the GTI and the Speed 3 had been in the same photo together, been framed together on camera and everything like that. So it was really cool because, you know, that was just a really fun time. And Michael worked his butt off to get that car running. And, you know, as a friend, I think we can all be proud of our friends from when they achieve their first big engine projects like this. And Michael was just kind of the GOAT for doing that. So it was a great video. Guys, go check it out. It was a fantastic time. Me and Michael had a great time filming that. And the reason I made this list is just because of the emotion and fun that was behind that video. Just how important that video was for Michael specifically during that time. Just getting that car put back together and completing his first engine swap, so to speak. It wasn't like, you know, putting a 1J in it or nothing like that, but it was, you know, taking the stock motor out, replacing it with a different, you know, stock engine. And it was a great video, and I think it's definitely a must watch for the year. Alright, so moving on to number 4. Now on my list, I'm flipping them because this is one I definitely wanted to flip. So number 4, Cruising with Michael and Ron. Now this was another video that we did a while back. This was, I think, in the meantime before Hayden bought his Speed 3. I think it was not too long before. Hayden and Michael wanted to get some, or not Hayden and Michael and Ron wanted to get some runs in with their Speed 3 and the Veloster in. And we just kind of wanted to cruise a little bit. So we went to a local Mexican restaurant, ate dinner, and then we left. And it was kind of later in the evening. I think it was very lightly drizzling. but Michael and Ron wanted to go at it, so I stood in the back. Hayden recorded the runs they did. It wasn't the best angle to really determine a winner for the races, but I did talk to them later and determine the winners, which is why someone commented on it. I responded to the comment and said who won. The speed wound up pulling just by a touch on most of the races. The Veloster definitely had the initial jump, but of course you're putting a dual clutch against a manual, and so that's going to obviously give the dual clutch car a bit of an edge. But it was just a fun video, and I can't wait to see those two go at it now that Michael's car is heavily dialed in, and Ron's car has now got his like crazy, you know, JB4 maps now. So I think that'll be a fun video to make. We might do a rehash of that. All right, moving on to number 3, and this is the actual reveal of the GTI. Now this video was super long because I for some reason decided to include like 10 minutes of me ranting about the end of the Sport Track's time on the channel. It was very emotional for me because despite the fact that Sport Track was a complete and utter reliability disaster the last 2 years I had it, which is eventually what led to me getting rid of it, was the reliability issues it had. It was just such a disaster. Now, of course, it was a 250,000 mile truck, and it had just caught fire and had just been rebuilt. Obviously, when it goes through, when you got that many miles and it's gone through a substantial thing like that, you can kind of expect the reliability to be less than desirable. But this was like, it was so bad, and I didn't trust taking it places. My girlfriend wouldn't ride in it anymore because she didn't think we were going to make it anywhere. And so I eventually decided it was time to get rid of it. I'll kind of spark notes the whole story of the GTI. I had actually gone to order a Mark 8 Golf R. Order window was closed. So I was like, okay, well, about a Mark 8 GTI. They wanted a $1,000 deposit, which I just didn't have at the time. And then like, well, wait, before you go, we do have a Mark 7 on the lot that is a 2017 with low mileage and it's DSG. And I was like, bring it around, I'll go for a ride. And I drove it and fell in love with it. It's the second time I'd driven the GTI, and I had left head over heels for it because for those who don't know, off camera last year I drove a Mark 6, almost bought a Mark 6, but I think I'm happier on my Mark 7 if I'm honest. And so I went back a couple of days later, signed the papers, and took the GTI home. And I wound up trading the Sport Track pretty much completely as it was. I don't think there were any mods I took off of it, much to everyone's chagrin, because the motives were still on it when I got rid of it. I didn't actually. I had arranged to pick up a set of stock wheels, but just didn't have the stock lug nuts to go with it. And so I just wound up scrapping that and just trading it with the motives. If I could go back, this is the one thing I would change. I would have just tried to have quickly sourced some OEM lug nuts, probably a couple days prior. But of course, at the time, I didn't know, and I just didn't have enough time to not only get factory lug nuts, but also get factory wheels. Like I said, I had fully arranged picking up a set of factory wheels, but I just didn't want to making that happen. But the significance of this video, why I made the list, is just because it was the start of a new chapter for me, hence why it was called the Chapter 2 Reveal. I'd had the Sport Track for 6 years, I believe. Yeah, about 6 years. Almost, I was a month shy of 6 years, to be honest, but it was 6 years, and it was time for something new, and the GTI was just the perfect car to jump to, I think, and I'm very happy with it, and I think that was just the move to make. Alright, so number 2, we're going to move on to the top 2 here. Caffeine and Octane October, or Volkstoberfest, or the VW Take Invasion, whatever you want to call it. For those who don't know, Caffeine and Octane is the biggest car show in the Southeast. It is thousands of cars crammed into this small parking lot in the middle of Kennesaw, Georgia. It was formerly Atlanta and Dunwoody, but they moved it to Kennesaw, Georgia, which is great because it's local to me. And every year in October, they do Volkstoberfest, or the VW Invasion. It's been called kind of both throughout the last few years. And it was a really fun event that I finally got to participate in. I always looked forward to Volkstoberfest because I've just always loved VW. My dad had a big stake in the air-cooled era of VWs. I'm kind of the first, the water-cooled era VW owners in the family. So me and my dad always just go up there and just kind of gawk at everything. I'm always gawking on R32s and Golf GTIs and stuff like that. My dad's gawking on the Bugs and Squarebacks and Carmen Gias and buses and all that kind of stuff. But this was the first year I actually got to partake in it, and I actually did manage to get showcase parking, which I showed out in the video. I pretty much showed I was parked in the showcase lot. And for those who were at that show, you might have gotten to even see my car hiding around in the showcase lot, in the main VW showcase lot. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it again next year because, if I'm honest, having to wait until the show ends to leave kind of sucked because I was there for a long time. And unfortunately for me, that was like the one weekend that Michael and Hayden didn't go. I hung out with Ron for most of the event, and then caught up with Kaysen and Brandon towards the end of the show. But unfortunately, Michael and Hayden didn't go. So the last like hour and a half of the show, I was there by myself because everyone had already left. But it was a really fun event. But I don't know if I'll partake in the showcase lot next year. I will probably be at Import Alliance though this upcoming year, so keep that in mind. All right, time for the number 1 video on this list. Thank you guys for bearing with me. I know it's a long video, but we're gonna talk about the number 1 spot, and that is Tail of the Dragon. So this was easily the number 1 choice. I think I even remember saying this is gonna be number 1 in my top 10 videos of the year when I shot that video. And pretty much for those who don't know the entire story of this trip, for my birthday, I just really wanted to do something I'd never done before, and I decided I really wanted to drive Tail of the Dragon. I feel like even if I'd had the sport track, I would have still tried to make this work, even though the sport track probably wouldn't have made it up there and back safely. So we took Hayden, Ron, and Michael all got together. We took 3 out of the 4 cars. Hayden just didn't feel comfortable taking the S2000 up at the time, and this was, of course, before he had his Speed 3. So Hayden just rode, and I think he had just as much fun as we did. I would hope. I tried my best to make it fun for him, even though he wasn't driving. We got a cabin up in Robbinsville, North Carolina, and it was a beautiful cabin, even though the driveway was Hades to get the cars up. How Ron didn't scrape his front lip off and how I didn't get trapped was kind of shocking. We had a beautiful cabin, though. It was a really great time. The hosts on Airbnb were fantastic. First night we were there, we just kind of hung out. We played, I think, Quiplash and Mario Kart and Smash Bros, I think. Mario Kart may not have been. I think it was Smash Bros we played. And then we got the second day, took the trip out to Tail of the Dragon, drove it like 4 times. We did like 4 laps on it, stopped for lunch, made a couple friends on the way, Nefty, Bobby, and there, and it was a great time. And we went to Tapoco Lodge and ate lunch there. It was a great restaurant, very expensive, but very great food. We went back and did 2 more. We went down to Robbinsville, gassed up, and we did 2 more runs. And then we decided to call it. I had actually wanted to stop after the second run because I was exhausted. It is a workout on the arms if you're not in shape. And so we did 2 more runs, hung out there, and kind of at the historic gas station resort area, which is my wallpaper on my desktop in case you guys couldn't see it. And we had such a great time. It was just such an amazing trip. And I'm probably going to be going back up there like twice this year in 2023. I have full intentions of going up for Wookiees in the Woods in April, and I think we might probably do another summer trip later in July or August once everyone's cars are dialed in and ready to go. Not only Ron gets his Speed 3 up there for the first time and gives it a run because he's driven both of his other cars there. I'm sure he probably wants to drive that up there. Michael, I'm sure, wants another run at it. Michael's always wanted another run at it, so he'll probably be more excited about that than I am. I think he might be coming up with Wookiees though in April, and I'm hoping as long as Hayden is still in Georgia by then, that he'll be willing to take one of his cars up, because I know if he does move to Florida, that is a ride. So it's going to be fun though. Tail of the Dragon, just its significance. It was just such a fun video. It was the first time I'd ever done a trip without any sort of adults involved in it, which I know is crazy for someone who turned 23 this year. But I'm just generally a very scared I guess timid is a good word for it. I'm very timid, and I don't like losing familiarity. And familiarity for me is always having one of my parents on standby and having one of them with me to hang out with and talk to. But I think I don't think there was a better group I could have done this with for my first big trip without adults than the friend group that I have, because I know they weren't going to let nothing happen to me. So I can't thank them enough for putting up with me for all these years. But anyway, guys, hope you all enjoyed this video, the top 10 videos of 2022. What were your top 10 favorites, if you have any at all? What was your favorite video of the year from my channel? And thank you guys again for supporting me in this channel, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day, have a happy new year, and we're going to fire off in 2023 strong. Take care, guys.